Hi there everybody, and thanks for joining me. Now, have you ever wondered why, with so much information and knowledge at our fingertips, we're not all experts at what we do, that we're just not all perfect? Now, I'm sure you're an expert at what you do, but be it leadership skills or presentation skills, technical skills, or even just something like playing the piano, there are many skills that we all and should be expert at. Now, if you didn't know already, you do actually have access to thousands and thousands of hours of free content. Just for starters, YouTube has billions of videos. There is estimated 500 hours of content added every hour. Now, granted, not all of this training is useless. And yeah, unless you want to know how to play a piano with a cat. But there is still some great stuff out there. Now, away from YouTube, there's an estimated 600 million articles and blogs across the world. And that's not including all the hundreds of thousands of books from open libraries. And I could go on and on and on. Now, on top of this, you have paid content. Now, obviously, there's IIL. They have thousands of courses and loads of different topics. And just to be balanced, there are many other platforms: LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, Coursera, edX, just to name a few. And they all offer a whole range of online content for individuals and corporations. Now, some of these are free, but most of them you do have to pay for. But even with all this content, there are still gaps in our development. The World Economic Forum estimates that 54% of employees will require significant reskilling by 2022. And that's only a year away. And these skill gaps have detrimental impacts, not just at individual development, but also at the corporation level, as there's a greater need to hire externally, as these people already have those skills. And innovation also suffers as it relies on the mastery of simple problems. And as innovation slows, corporations lack a competitive edge, which can ultimately result in their demise. Now, plugging these development gaps and kickstarting innovation is not as simple as telling people to develop or to innovate. It's actually a mindset of individuals that need to be focused on and developed. But whose responsibility is it to develop a learning mindset? Now, you may think the obvious answer is me, the individual. But there's actually some other important outside factors. So I'd like to use an analogy to put things into perspective. So let's say I wanted to join a gym. The salesperson at the gym tells me all the facts and figures about the brand new equipment, their state-of-the-art tracking software, and they want me to sign up. So I do. So they show me how to use all this great equipment, and off I go. After a month or so, I just stop going. But whose fault is it? Is it mine? Or is it the gym's? Now, you may say it was mine, I just didn't stick with it. But while I'm not just going to relinquish my responsibility, isn't it the gym that the expert is here? Isn't it in their best interest to ensure that I regularly attend? Not only would I be more likely to renew my membership, but by attending, I'm just more likely to spend extra while I'm at the gym. So as a fitness expert, isn't it their responsibility to educate the rest of us on not just the technical support, but the mindset support around gym and fitness in general? So let's play that scenario again, but this time, as well as the gym salesperson going through the technical know-how, they ask me about my aspirations and goals, why I want to get fit. They ask me about my life and my commitments, and how I feel all this fits into the gym. And as part of the sign-up process, I am coached, not just on how to use the equipment, but how to set realistic goals and how to create new habits to obtain them and to generally live a better, healthier life. Now, not only am I more likely to keep going to the gym, but I'm also much more likely to use it and just keep going at it longer. So let's put this into a work perspective. We still have the individual, but there are two other key players that support individuals in development of their learning mindset: the learning technology vendor and the leader. Now, in a bit, we'll take a look at the individual and how that person can develop a learning mindset. But let's take a look at the other two first. So let's start with the learning technology vendor. Now, a lot of these companies are at the cutting edge of technology. They utilize machine learning, AI, data analytics, and even things like virtual and augmented reality. All these technologies, when used effectively, can really drive employee engagement in learning. However, in too many cases, the selling of these products is much more focused on the technology rather than the experience. For example, they may help you to implement it, they show you how to use it, and they have technical support. But in just too many cases, just like the gym, they have the responsibility to get the most out of the products for us as customers. And we, as customers, should be demanding more from them. Just like people in the gyms are fitness experts, people in learning companies are, in theory, learning experts. They should be partnering with us. They should be helping to set up the employees for success. If these partners provided support, not just from the technical side, but from an experience side as well, not only would employees know how to use these platforms, but they'd also have the means to thrive on them as well. So for example, I recently came across a video platform company that enabled people to create their own videos, but it didn't provide any consultancy on how to make better videos. Now, this is not to say that a company could not support their staff in creating videos, but if the vendor is promoting a video platform, wouldn't you expect them to be experts in video? And then wouldn't you expect them to be helping you out to make the most of your platform and most of video? Especially if the customer has, say, no previous video experience. Now, I'm not saying it is the sole responsibility of the video platform provider to train all employees, otherwise it gets very complicated. But there does seem to be a general assumption from vendors that customers know how to best use their products. And yeah, you know what they say about making assumptions. So we, as customers, can do more by first ensuring that we pick the right partner. And we need to clearly communicate our pain points to the vendor and our expectations, and have a fair proposal process with stakeholder input that gives you that great start. We should be constantly engaging with these partners to see what the best approaches are and to particular learning challenges and sharing those best practice. It's just not a simple case of just sending regular reports. So this is how the learning vendor can support. But what role does the leader play in supporting an individual's development of a learning mindset? Well, first and foremost, the role of a leader is to create a psychologically safe environment in which an employee can develop and thrive within this. Now, this term was first coined by Amy Edmondson, and put simply, psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Now, within this environment, an individual has the freedom to develop and practice a learning mindset with confidence. The leader also has a responsibility to lead by example. If a leader has not yet developed a learning mindset, then they should be willing to learn along with their employees. Humility, don't forget, is actually a great characteristic to have as a leader. So let's see what a learning mindset actually is and the steps individuals can take to work towards one. So according to mindset.com, mindsets are those collection of beliefs and thoughts that make up the mental attitude, inclination, habit, or disposition that predetermines a person's interpretations and responses to events, circumstances, and situations. Whew, that's a bit of a mouthful. So, what are the right attitudes, inclination, and habits that would create a learning mindset? So for me, there is actually 4 key ingredients that we need to stir together to have this great learning mindset: positivity, self-awareness, self-development, and sharing. So let's start with positivity. Individuals with positive attitude see learning opportunities everywhere. But a positive attitude doesn't just happen. Even though you may come across many people that just seem to be born with a positive attitude, what you don't see is years of work they've put in to working on their attitude, and most likely they've been brought up and worked in environments where positivity is supported and encouraged. If a barrier appears, a person with a positive attitude would most likely see an opportunity to develop. And as we have established, we're not the masters of every skill. So the expertise of others is needed, and a positive person is much more likely not only to seek out the support of these experts, but is also much more likely to take their advice. The positivity is not about a leader shouting, "We can do this." It's not about leaders stamping out negative attitudes from team members. It's not about reprimanding or ignoring those that only see barriers. It's about leaders shouting, "What can I do to help?" Sorry about the voice. It's about identifying and calling out issues or challenges and working to break them down to manageable pieces. It's about trying potential solutions instead of just doing nothing. As Winston Churchill once said, success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. It's about embracing those that tend to focus towards the barriers, as these people do actually have a unique and important perspective. And by understanding the underlying reasons for this so-called negativity, the whole community can develop. But after some discovery, the reason is that the change has not been effectively communicated, causing confusion and ultimately negativity. Now remember, it is good to have some different perspectives within a team, and healthy discussions between those that want to forge ahead and those that are cautious, which can come across as negative, typically result in a successful environment for a team to work in. And a positive attitude needs to be continuously worked on and reinforced by the whole community, not just the leaders. The whole community needs to be continuously demonstrating the benefits of positive behaviour, spearheaded by the leader. When it comes to learning, the community can create a win-win environment by focusing on what's in it for you. If an individual understands this perspective, not only would they be more likely to be enthusiastic about the development, but they'll be much more likely to keep this knowledge. So for example, I'm sure you've all been sent on a course because of some perceived lack of skill. I remember a couple of years ago, I think, I was asked to go on a communication course to improve my communication skills. Something about frustrating people with communication, something like that. Maybe you've been told something similar in the past, something like, you need to learn how to listen better, whatever better is. Or you need to improve your presentation skills, or simply, I want you to go on a management course. And most of the time, even if the experience of the training is a positive one, probably just because you have a few days off work, the development wasn't as impactful as first thought. Maybe the content gets blamed, not detailed enough. Maybe the trainer gets blamed, it's not engaging enough. Or maybe the trainee gets blamed and just not committed enough. And although there may be cases where this blame is appropriate, for the majority of cases, it's actually nothing to do with the content or the trainer or the trainee, but that it was actually someone else and not you that pushed for the development. Now, leaders play a key role in all this by working with individuals to identify this what's in it for them. They need to dedicate time with employees to understand what drives them and encouraging individuals to reflect rather than just simply telling them where they need to develop. And for the individual, identification of development areas comes from practicing self-awareness. The skill of being self-aware is one of the most underrated skills of the 21st century. If you listen to almost anyone that is considered a visionary, they all promote the importance of self-awareness. And self-awareness is, in essence, the ability to self-analyze yourself and consciously, and most importantly, without your own prejudice, consider how you work, communicate, collaborate, and even how you lead, and start to identify how you can improve these. As Sheryl Sandberg, CEO of Facebook, said, "We cannot change what we are not aware of, but once we are aware, we cannot help but change." Now, self-awareness is not something to be taken lightly. Being self-aware is not something you can do in one 5-minute session. For this to work most effectively, it needs to be something you invest regularly in, both inside and outside of your work. Just like anything worth doing in this life, it takes dedication and consistent practice to form this habit. Self-awareness does not mean you need to lock yourself away in some spiritual retreat for weeks and weeks and weeks to contemplate life. To practice self-awareness, there are just some few basic steps that you can do while at work or at home. So the first step is reflection. Now, I'm sure many of you carry out retrospects on projects that you're doing. And this same practice should be done about yourself. Keeping an account of your actions and interactions, how you felt about them, and what you could do to potentially do differently in the future. Now, many people combine this self-analysis with meditation to help focus the mind. Now, on a side note, I'm not referring to meditation as a spiritual quest, but simply a few minutes each day to disconnect and refocus. Something that's becoming a lot more popular in this fast-paced life that we're in. Now, this level of reflection can feel awkward at first, and it can take days or even weeks before you start to feel that you're getting some real insights. But the benefits are worth the wait. Now, once you feel that this self-analysis is going well, you can start to reach out to your friends and colleagues or peers to gain their feedback. Now, this stage can be difficult as you need total honesty from both the giver and receiver, and you can take it personally, which is not a good thing. And once you have this wealth of insight, you can identify and prioritize the areas you want to work on. Now remember, don't try and improve all these areas at the same time, as this can be difficult to maintain and leads to frustration. Focus on one priority, and once you're happy with that area, then move on to the next. So we've covered positivity and self-awareness. Now let's look at self-development. Now, although self-development is kind of implied when we're talking about positivity and self-awareness, it is important to stress the importance of determining your own learning journey. The conscious decision not to wait to be told to learn, but to find your own moments to develop, be it taking a few days or even weeks off to focus on a skill, or simply dropping into a video for 5 minutes during the particular time of the day that you like to do that learning time. This is all part of being self-developed and key to a learning mindset. And self-development is about determining what, how, and when you learn. So positivity, self-awareness, and self-development are important attributes. But for the continued success, not just for the individual, but for the team and the company, the desire and ability to share knowledge with others is paramount. This desire to share first comes from within. Now, I remember running to school and telling all my friends the new trick I learned, or telling my colleagues about the new and fancy tool that I found. And I'm sure you all have these similar experiences. This need to share is something innate in all of us. Now, effective sharing is not about dictating how people should share, but rather reducing the barriers to bring people closer together to make it easier to share. So throughout history, sharing has been the backbone of innovation and technologically advance. Over the centuries, where there have been little geographical barriers, for example, such as from the Fertile Crescent to what is now Western Europe, the diffusion of ideas led to rapid development. And today, these geographical barriers have been replaced by technological ones. And platforms like Slack or Microsoft Teams or Yammer resolve these technological barriers. And note that irrespective of the fact that we live in a social media environment, you still need to educate people on how to use these platforms efficiently and show them the benefits of sharing. And demonstrating benefits of sharing, such as promoting testimonials which explain how sharing of an idea directly led to an improved process or product, gives people more confidence to share themselves. And when it comes to the process of sharing, there's actually a bit of an art to it. It's not just about throwing your piece of knowledge over the fence and assuming others will just take it on. Just because you like something doesn't mean it works for somebody else. So both the sharer and the sharee, I know that's not a technical word, but you've got to roll with me here. They both have a role to play here. The key is to think of it as a diffusion of sharing rather than a simple copy and paste. So let me give you an example in history to demonstrate this. So in Japan, it's hundreds and hundreds of years ago, guns were brought over from other countries, and the plan was simply to copy the manufacture of them and roll them out. And the thinking was, well, it worked for them, so it worked for us. But actually, the society rejected them. Now compare this to how the idea of, say, the alphabet and writing diffused out of the Middle East again thousands of years ago. Whereas the guns were forced on the people with no immediate need to be filled, with writing, the evidence does show that the sharee understood the value of what they had and adapted it to make it work for them. The diffusion is about the sharer sharing the benefits and thought that went on behind the content being shared. And the sharee needs to dissect this content to identify where all the little bits of content that they like and don't like and work out what works for them. The leaders are essential to this process. They need to be actively sharing knowledge themselves and giving time for others to identify their needs and work out if the shared content is useful as a whole or in part. They need to be setting formal expectations on the amount of content shared, and they need to be reviewing and encouraging all this activity. They can also set aside time in meetings dedicated to sharing and dissecting. By doing all these actions, leaders are normalizing the process of sharing. Sharing can take all different types of forms. From talking about a course they've just taken, raising an idea about a potential challenge. Maybe it's recommending a new podcast or even trying a new tool. The key is making time a habit in every meeting. And on a side note, it is good practice to have these sharing sections at the start of the meeting. By putting it first, it demonstrates to the team how important it is. So if we take a step up from the individual, be it an employee or a leader, and look at a learning mindset from an organizational level, we need to think about how to create a learning culture. Now, there is no easy or fast way to accomplish this. Every organization operates differently and needs to find what works for them. But there are some fundamentals that all organizations can work towards. Now, organizations may say that they have a learning culture because, they've invested in learning, be it content or technology. But as we said at the start, while learning platforms and tools are useful, the creation of a learning culture is more than this. Now, organizations may say they have a culture of learning because they've set learning performance metrics like minimum hours of training per employee. But again, as we've said, if organizations force employees to learn, it just doesn't have the desired effect. Now, just like any culture change, it needs to be brought in gradually and start from the top. Senior leadership can set the bar by demonstrating the attributes of a learning mindset: positivity, self-awareness, self-development, and sharing. For example, as well as sharing, say, the monthly status updates of the company, they include recently what they've learned or what they're developing. Now, organizations can build in mechanisms that support development rather than focus on training, such as tying in pay and performance with development plans. Rather than simply tracking hours, track if the training has actually improved the individual. For example, implementing Fitzpatrick Level 3 evaluations on all training. But why is this learning mindset and learning culture important in the first place? Well, for individuals, it's about staying ahead of the curve. The exponential growth of computing power, known as Moore's Law, over the decades has led to today's technologically advanced society. Having a learning mindset enables you to thrive in this environment. As companies strive to adapt and change as technology improves and shifts, an individual with this learning mindset has the ability to not only adapt and develop with it, but also the ability to bring others along with you so you can all go on the journey together. For teams, it creates an engaging working environment. Each individual within this team is built up on the backs of each of their teammates, which leads to both the team and individual success. At the organizational level, with a culture of learning, the workforce becomes generally more engaged. Now, this leads to benefits such as lower absenteeism or lower attrition and improved productivity. So how does a learning mindset actually support innovation? Well, there are many actual similarities between innovation and learning. They both involve the development of an idea through knowledge and sharing. They are reliant on failure and the perseverance through that failure to success. And most importantly, they both need to be thought of as a mindset and not a technical process. Now, just like learning, innovation is not something that can be forced on people. You may feel that as a leader, in order to improve some internal efficiencies or stay ahead of the competition, you need to drive innovation. But in actuality, you need to drive individuals to have a learning mindset, which will naturally lead to an improvements of those innovations. Now, I know that a learning mindset doesn't drive innovation on its own. The organization needs to create a psychologically safe environment for their employees to work in. They need to have a robust process that encourage innovation. But without the encouragement to develop a learning mindset and continuously develop, innovation stalls. So I've come to the end of my talk, but what are some of the key points I'd love for you to take away from this? Well, as we saw at the start, when it comes to learning, we need to address the mindset, not just throw content at the staff. It's the responsibility of all of us to develop and support a learning mindset and a learning culture. In order to develop a learning mindset, you need to practice positivity, self-awareness, self-development, and have a sharing mentality. Now, all these characteristics go towards bridging the skill gap and driving innovation to succeed both now and into the future. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this talk and it's given you some food for thought on how to gain a learning mindset and the positive impact it can have on your own company's future. I look forward to connecting with all of you on this topic and driving the discussion forward. Thank you very much for your time.